What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Off the Top Rope, a live Off the Top Rope here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. Thanks everybody for tuning in. It has been I mean, we did this Monday night. We did this after Raw. We did this after Evolution, and we're gonna do it live here again. Listen. Oh man, oh brother. This show was not very good. I'm just gonna- I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, it wasn't it wasn't an atrocity by any stretch of the imagination, but I was not I was not impressed by what AEW did to follow up their biggest show of the year. Um when you have the momentum that AEW had coming off of this weekend, um you don't you don't squander opportunities like that. And to see what this company put forth, basically, which is like, we talk about night after WrestleManias. Um and in this case, the night after WrestleMania is supposed to be like, sacred for like a show. And a lot of things here just, jumped off the page. Obviously, the number one topic of discussion, fair or not, is going to be the venue choice. And I understand that they made this decision to go on this residency. Um, made this decision to go on this residency months ago, and they're going to do this for 3 weeks in Chicago in one of their hubs. And so to do this in the way that they've done it, it's just especially coming off of a night where you went through 30,000 people in a baseball stadium, and now you're in a ballroom in Chicago, a place where you once sold 15,000 tickets on a rumor that CM Punk might show up. That was almost 4 years ago to the day, and here they are, barely getting over 1,000 people. What does that tell you with them booking that residency? Yeah, did it sound good on television? Sure. But optically, that's not great that you go immediately from 25 to 30,000 people down to 1,000. Like, that's just, it's just like night and day. And people will say, well, Raw back in the 90s was in the Manhattan ballroom. I was like, yeah, Raw back in the 90s was not great. Like they were in trouble, and they had to go do those shows in the Manhattan ballroom. And it's just like, perception is reality. And when you show your world champion after holding up that world title in front of 30,000 people, and you get in an arena, granted it was a very unique looking venue. And I get that, these intimate venues, kind of to sort of restore the feeling. But again, when you come off a stadium show, you want to put your best foot forward. Like, the content part of this is obviously a separate issue, because that's another big problem that happened tonight. But the big issue for me, at least straight off the bat, is aesthetically. Yes, does it look okay? Does it look, like decent and like, unique? Sure. But when this company started, they were selling out fucking basketball venues. And it's just like, I don't know what to say about this, man. Um, it's like, I'm trying to figure out exactly what the plan really was here, because from a aesthetics perspective, this show did not hit. I'm sure it was fun for those people, those 1,100 people that were in that ballroom in Chicago. But just from a 30,000 foot big picture view, like I said, stadium show in a city that was once your hub, where you hosted regular shows where you could get 8,000 people. I understand it's CM Punk country, but you once sold 15,000 tickets for the United Center, which is one of the biggest venues in North America. and you basically sold what a 50, I don't even know if a 15th is a fraction, but it's just like seriously night and day. And then when you get to the actual content of this show, what really did they progress off of what really was their season finale at their WrestleMania? What is the Raw after WrestleMania? New characters, new feuds, new things start. And we waited basically over an hour for something new to be fostered in or something. And we waited like an hour for some real story to be told on this show with Adam Copeland kind of advancing his story with Christian, which was great. And I know a lot of people give Adam Copeland a hard time, but but at the same time, like he's still an unbelievable promo. He's one of the most gifted mic guys in professional wrestling history. The guy's a great promo. But we waited an hour for that to happen. And yeah, we had Hangman with his victory speech, which was awesome. I loved Hangman's promo. He's saying, "I'm the fucking world champ. I'm the fucking world champion." Great. And then he's in a main event 4 days, and then he's in a main event 6-man trios match against the guy he faced and tried to stabbed multiple times with a fork on Saturday. Gee, that is selling anything. So, you had the staples of a Tony Khan show basically this year. All-star 8-man tag, 4-way match for an inordinate sum of money. This time it was with the women. And and we have another women's faction. The booking in this women's division, like here's the other thing that jumps out to me. We spent a lot of time talking about the women here on the channel. We did the whole Evolution post show, and I talked about how great that show was. And then literally the first 90 minutes of Raw on Monday was all dedicated to women. Like I said, it literally took 2 days, almost 2 full days, and it took until 9:35 Eastern time for Monday Night Raw for a man who was actually a wrestler, not a referee, to step into the ring. And that was 2 days after the last time that had happened. And here we are. We had to wait almost that same amount of time for the women to even show up on this show. And it's just, I mean, that's a good point. Tekla and Julia are basically together because they're just creepy and they do the backwards spider walk or the whole Bray Wyatt spot. So that's a good point. But shit, man, like it's just the women's division, dude. Like Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale, hey, they're fighting out in the middle of that. Tekla and Aminata. I feel bad for Queen Aminata. She was kind of just basically thrust into this because Jamie Hayter got hurt. But yeah, we basically reserved what about 15 or so minutes, 15, 20 minutes for the women on this show. We had 10 minutes of a women's match. We had a decent Toni Storm promo, followed by Athena, which is great to see Athena. Although, by the way, they could not wait until that segment was over between where Athena cut her promo in rebuttal of Toni Storm. They could not wait to announce Toni Storm versus Billy Starks. So, and yeah, it's just like, listen, it's again, like perception and optics are a big indicator of what's going on. Like I said, we had really 2 singular women's matches at All in Texas. One of them was great. The women's gauntlet was kind of all over the place with the right finish, and it was very fun. It was more fun than the men's. And then you had a whole women's pay-per-view, 7 matches, and then legitimately the first 90 minutes of Raw, all women. How does AEW respond? Literally, not even a half hour of women's stuff. And it was a 4-way for $100,000, a throwaway match that ended in a screwy finish where you just put a bunch of women together that seemingly have the booking in this company mystifies me. And then the main event, nothing really to write home about. Darby Allin basically, just appears and distracts Jon Moxley. So I don't know what the direction is for Hangman moving forward. I do like the progression of what we saw. The two things that are, off the wall a little bit that you know kind of weave together. I do like what they're doing with Okada. Jury's out on his theme. I like that his first feud's going to be with Swerve. I like that. They needed to do something to get, I mean, I would have done without the Quintero, whoever the motherfucker that he faced. But you know, I do like that, you know, Okada's got a prime adversary right off the bat. And there's a reason for it that they came up with. Hey, you affected my friends, the Young Bucks. And that leads me into the Young Bucks. I actually I am not the biggest Young Bucks fan. I think their wrestling they're the same match, but they truly are one of the great tag teams, and they've really innovated the division. What they did tonight, coming out of what happened at All in Texas with the bum ass Corbin, you know, the bum ass Bucks, I guess is what they're going to be, where they had their dumbed down locker room. They're taking an Uber into the venue. They have their music interrupted. Their pyro's not there. Justin Roberts is basically saying, "Oh, it's just Matt and Nick, the Young Bucks." That was very entertaining. That was very entertaining. I got to give him props for that. That was so those two things kind of wove together. I like the Toni Storm promo because Toni Storm is just a gift. No Mercedes Moné on this show. Like I said, I'm not going to rail on her. I actually think she should sell. But that also leads me into another huge issue here. Mercedes Moné is out selling a fucking, a 5 Storm Zeros that she took at the pay-per-view. We didn't even really reference her on this show outside of the obvious that Toni Storm beat her in this epic match. Meanwhile, Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley in the main event, they're not there. They are there. They're fucking wrestling a match after a Texas death match 4 days ago where they were trying to kill each other. Like, for God's sake, Jon Moxley had a chain wrapped around his neck. It was being hung over the ropes. He was like the shit that they did in that match, and Jon Moxley's just got a Band-Aid on it. It's like Hangman's clearly got some staples in his head, and they're wrestling like it's nothing. For what? For what? Kenny Omega's is off selling, the match. I mean, granted, he was banged up. Okada didn't need to wrestle, but he did. So, like, it's just, listen, like, I don't, just so much about the show bothered me. Like I said, it wasn't necessarily a bad, show, but from an optics perspective, the venue didn't look great on television. And then also, given what this show was supposed to be, the follow-up to your biggest show of the year, one of your best pay-per-views that you've ever done, biggest gate, longest run time, all 4 matches delivered, and no follow-ups, no substantive follow-up. It's just, and I don't know if Hangman and Mox are going to run it back. I know they got 6 weeks to get to Forbidden Door, but like, that's not great optics, having your main event where you seemingly had some finality, and we're just going straight back to what we did, the last 4 or 5 weeks building to this match in Texas. Like, this is exactly what I feared was going to happen with this pay-per-view, where Tony Khan basically just was like, fuck it. We had a good show, and we're just gonna do the same things that we've been doing week to week, and we're just gonna twiddle our thumbs until we need to get close to a pay-per-view build, and then and then they don't do anything. Listen, the story, I don't know if the wrestling. Here's the thing: wrestling is never a problem in AEW. It's like, wrestling's never the issue, but I will say there were a couple things storyline wise, specific, like the Young Bucks early on in the show, but really, and the Adam Copeland stuff was interesting. Toni Storm seemingly setting up something for the future. And then, obviously the Okada and Swerve stuff is really interesting because it seems like they're going to treat that like a second world title, the Unified Championship. So, would I have liked to have seen maybe some sort of a segment with Hangman and Swerve? Yes. But I do appreciate that, Hangman at the start of this show, and let's just get right into it. He literally went down the list of people, everybody who got into it with the Death Riders, including Orange Cassidy, including Jay White, one of his other adversaries, including Adam Copeland, including Will Ospreay, the Ops, Swerve, and then he says it to the end until, thanks Swerve Strickland. And he closed it out with a great line saying, I'm the motherfucker, or I'm the fucking world champion, or something like that. I forgot what the exact verbiage. I have it here in my notes. But he said, I'm the champion of the fucking world. I'm sorry. So, but yeah, this was a really, this set the tone, really, I think. Well, I mean, this sort of set the mood, at least, and it was the right idea to put Hangman out there first, given, what that meant for AEW. And then really, like, the rest of this thing fell off the cliff. RM, you're bringing up something really, really interesting here. Let's go back to the women's division here for a second. Guys, chats are open. Super chats are open. Best way you can support the show. Like I said, I appreciate the activity here. AEW seems to rile a lot of people up. So, with the women's division, Nyla Rose, I have no idea. Serena Deeb, I have no idea. Hikaru Shida, no idea. Britt Baker, I think is on her way out. I think Britt Baker is on her way out. They withheld her because they pretty much withheld her because they didn't want her to go to Evolution. Petty or not. Yuka Sakazaki, I have no idea. I mean, I know her husband's Konosuke Takeshita. Takeshita's in Japan. That's why he wasn't on the show. Deonna, the fall of Deonna Purrazzo needs to be studied. I have no earthly idea what happened with that. She was feuding for the Women's World Championship a year ago, and now she can't even get on television. And Camille, I think Camille is going to do. That's a good point. Sheeta's got visa issues, but listen, like, it's just her absence is notable. But Camille, I know she's doing a television show, but it seems like, that was doomed to fail from the start. The point here, the big picture issue here that we're talking about here with this women's division is you put two of your biggest stars in that four-way for the $100,000, and there's actually a compelling story to tell, even though they kind of did this last year and they kind of moved off of it. Statlander turned heel and then, just turned back right after it. But Stat and Willow, there's a lot of meat on the bone there, and yet they're just fighting for no reason over $100,000. And Stat screwed Willow out of winning the match. Tekla and Aminata have had some good beef, but then Aminata just loses because Tekla's aligning with Julia Hart. Like, it's just, yeah. Like, there were things about this show that I did like. There were some things I did like about this show. And like I said, it wouldn't have been so bad if it didn't come off of, All In Texas. That's my issue. And that's why a lot of this stuff doesn't land. Like, if WWE put on this type of a show after WrestleMania, you would not hear the end of it. I remember Vince McMahon doing stuff back in 2021, 2022, and even that show in 2023 in LA, where I thought about going to the Raw in LA. That was the one where Vince McMahon hijacked the show, rewrote everything, and it made no sense, and it was not cohesive. It's where Brock Lesnar attacked Cody Rhodes. Listen, you should have surprises. You should have new angles. You should have new people. And really all this did was feel like, hey, we're kicking the can down the road for next week. Like I said, Okada and Swerve was a good idea. I'm actually really intrigued by what they're doing with the Young Bucks, because at least this is somewhat of a character arc where they're going to be like, hey, celeb facts and quotes. I know we go back and forth, buddy. They booked this a couple months in advance. So they knew what they were doing with this. They knew that they weren't gonna sell tickets. So they were like, hey, let's just go to Chicago. We love Chicago, the market. We're gonna just, do a residency. But doing this for 3 weeks, But my whole thing is why would you book this right after your biggest show of the year? If you want to do a residency, that's fine. I've seen them do it and it actually netted out really well for them. Don't do it so close to your WrestleMania. Like, really? That's my problem with this. Like, it's just, you know, he books for the sickos, Tony does, and he doesn't really, see the bigger picture. And this is my problem of, like, I was seeing the PR office of Dave Meltzer basically saying they felt like they turned the corner. But Tony Khan is telling everybody that everything's fine and this is the best year that they've done. I mean, and some of the sickos will probably say that this was a great product. And it's like, yeah, that pleases them. But from an optics perspective, when you're talking, like, there's people who don't watch AEW who are genuinely curious about, hey, they just had a really great show on Saturday, 25, 30,000 people in a stadium. What's it going to look like on Wednesday night? And the first thing they see is a 1,200 seat ballroom in Chicago. Like, it's just, I don't get it, man. I don't get it. Like, typically they do for like special event feel things. They can sell more than 3,000 tickets. Like for Dynamite 300, they sold a lot of tickets. And hey, you go, if you were going to go to Chicago, go to the Now Arena, go to the place that you always go to. You literally did 6,000, I think, back in May for a cage match that you did with Joe and Moxley. Like, why not go back there? I don't get why they had to do this residency to just please the people of Chicago. And it just makes you look weak. It makes you look weak. Like, this company almost 4 years ago to the day, I said this at the top of the show, almost 4 years ago to the day, sold out the United Center. Do you guys realize how fucking big the United Center is? It's the second biggest building to the Greensboro Coliseum in North America. You could see, depending on if you wanted to pull out the whole stage, you could seat almost 20,000 people in that place. They sold 15,000 tickets on a rumor that CM Punk would show up for a 1-hour rampage. And 4 years later, you're selling 1,100 tickets. 1,100 after your biggest show of the year. You can say that the venue is intimate and whatnot, but come on, man. Come on. Like that, the optics of that is just horrendous. The optics of that are horrendous. It's so fucking awful to see this company operate. Like I said, I did not like the first 2 hours of that show in Texas because I thought a lot of it wasted time to, just bleed into Saturday night's main event. But a large chunk of the last 4 hours of that show, maybe they are trying to save some money, but it's like money shouldn't be an is Tony. Is spending all this money on wrestlers. So, and yes, obviously Tony Khan, it's a different situation where WWE is a fucking corporation, man. Like, so publicly traded company is TKO, but it's the optics of it are just not great, man. They're not. So, all right, so like I said, I love the way the show started off. That's funny. Nick's going from MSG to Taft High School gym. That's great. I like that, Edward. So, but I did, look at listen, it didn't look great, but it sounded great. I'll give him that. Could they look, then don't go to Chicago. Go. I mean, you could have stayed in Texas. Did a takeover, but it's just, like I said, I just don't, that from the optics perspective, it took me out of it. But yeah, so I did like that Hangman promo to start the show. Like I said, the crowd was really into it, but it's just like it said, it looks like you're in a movie theater. It looks like you're at medieval times. It's just, come on. So then we get the footage of the Bucks showing up to the arena in an Uber, rolling their own bags. That was actually great. Um, First match of the night is Kyle Fletcher versus Mascara Dorado. Um, I don't know why they did this. Mascara Dorado is very fun, but I don't get why this needed to happen. I do. Kyle Fletcher needed a win, but he didn't need to go 50-50 with this guy. He didn't need to go 50-50. I mean, if you're gonna put Kyle Fletcher in a match on Dynamite, put him in a squash. Put him in a squash. Make him kill a guy. Hell, just for substantive build here, could have him kill Daniel Garcia, have him kill Sammy Guevara, have him kill one of the Von Erichs or something like that. That would have been way more effective in terms of building to this thing with Dustin Rhodes, because clearly that's where this is going. I like Kyle Fletcher. I think he's got all the tools. He's really molded himself into really something special for AEW, but they've yet to pull the trigger on this guy. And they've got to do it soon because people are losing their patience. And Mascara Dorado, as fun as that was, it didn't need to go as long as it needed to. And like I said, I gave you at least like 2 or 3 other opponents that would have been, from a storytelling perspective, way better than Mascara Dorado. Because what does Mascara Dorado have to do other than he's a CMLL guy and they're going to promote Forbidden Door, which they didn't even promote, by the way. It was just what Kyle Fletcher did after the match, yelling into the camera saying, Dustin Rhodes, I'll see you soon. That was more effective than anything that happened in that 10-minute match. So, but like I said, I like Kyle Fletcher. Some people could say he's reckless and he's the reason Adam Cole got hurt. The power bomb that missed the apron was not a good look. The lariat that effectively concussed him is not a good look. But I like Kyle Fletcher. He's a young, talented guy. If you're not building new stars, you're not doing shit in the wrestling business. But they got to crown this guy at some point. I get why they went with Dustin Rhodes at the pay-per-view. They were in Texas. They were in a tough spot. They put Dustin in the match. He hadn't had a singles title. It felt like a big moment, after the deflating moment of Adam Cole basically saying that he's maybe done. You needed to boost up that crowd, and Kyle Fletcher wasn't going to do that. So I get it from that perspective, but you can't prolong this very much longer. No, that's what I said. No, that's what I was saying, Chief, is like, I think Sammy or one of the Von Erich kids would have been perfect in this scenario and have Kyle Fletcher just kill him in like 5 minutes. That would have made way more sense than going with Mascara Dorado, because there was nothing after this match that really led into anything. So, it doesn't make a lot of sense to go with that. So yeah, like I said, after the match, Kyle Fletcher, I like that Kyle Fletcher, said something into the camera after the match. So then we get more footage of the Young Bucks arriving backstage, being greeted by Renee Paquette. They walk past Marina Shafir. Everybody's blowing them off. So then they go over to their dressing room, and a crew member is just crossing out their EVP title and writing Matt and Nick on there. So then Ricochet, Bishop Khan, and Toa Leona, I don't even know what those guys are called. So they laugh and walk away. Don Callis comes over and suggests, hey, we should work together. Matt and Nick basically say they don't want to necessarily, join the family, but working with them could be advantageous. So that's a little bit of an intriguing element. We get to that later in the show. We get another backstage segment from All in Wembley, or not Wembley, All in Texas, man. If it was in Wembley and they did this would have been way worse. Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, MVP, and MJF, they get a backstage promo. Basically, MVP's begging one of these legendary tag teams to step up and take these titles from us, please. MJF said he was happy Hangman won the world title. He said if Moxley, if it was Moxley, he would have pinned him in his weakened state at the show. He said he's the best in the world. He didn't need the contract to beat him. He said it's just break glass in case of an emergency. He said Paige has been the main character. He can be the main character all he wants because he has no problem being the bad guy. If you did notice, this was interesting. Bobby Lashley was kind of glaring at MJF and basically said, Bobby Lashley basically glared at MJF, more or less saying, fuck you, man. You're not better than me. So it'd be interesting to see if the dissension plays a role in the Hurt Syndicate moving forward. So then we get the entrances for our all-star 8-man tag. Young Bucks, their video wall, they were trying to do their pose and get their pyro, and their music stopped. And so EVP was crossed out. They basically had them showing up in the Uber, and said, and Justin Roberts basically says they used to be EVPs. This was great. It's hinting at, like, sort of, you guys remember the bum ass Corbin thing from after Corbin lost the King crown in like 2021. This was right before they came out of the Thunderdome. And that was some of the best work of Baron Corbin's career, actually. And then they went to Happy Corbin, which was insufferable. But that's what this feels like. So I'm actually kind of curious to see where they go with it. 8-man tag: Bandito, Mike Bailey, Kevin Knight, and Brody King. Good to see Brody King getting weekly TV time. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't like him getting thrown in these 8-man schmozzes of matches. Josh Alexander, Hechicero, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson. So that's the all-in. That's the all-star tag. One spot that I did like in this match, Matt and Nick were going to go for the EVP trigger, and they stopped themselves because they can't do that anymore. So that was, again, Young Bucks, as much as I rag on them, they were one of the most intriguing parts of this entire show tonight. So I was definitely pleased with how they performed, at least in this. Basically, Bandito gets choked out by Hechicero. They're hinting towards an ROH title match. Look, I like Bandito, man. I hope Bandito gets on the main roster at some point for AEW, because he's great. Awesome title match with Takeshita at that Ring of Honor show before All In Texas. But that's really what this was. There was really nothing to write home about it. It was 13 minutes. It just, we've had so many of these all-star 8-man tags, and coming out of your biggest show of the year, throwing, Brody King into this, like Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight challenge for the tag team titles. What the fuck are they doing in this? Josh Alexander's basically there because, they needed a Don Callis guy in the match, and Takeshita wasn't there. Hechicero's clearly going for something with Bandito. And it's like, none of this really, like, I saw this and I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. This is another 8-person all-star tag. It feels like they've done one of these a week in the last 6 weeks. It's unbelievable how lazy creative this is. And it didn't do anything because none of these guys had anything remotely, it didn't even follow up on anything remotely storyline-wise from what happened at the pay-per-view. That was my big problem with this. Okay. So then we get into Adam Copeland. Adam Copeland, listen, some of the booking and some of the ways that Adam Copeland has gone about his run in AEW have not been great, but I'll always pop for Metalingus, and it's great that the fans are singing it. It's very nice to see. I love that Cope came out immediately and said, "Hey, I didn't come to save Christian." He said, I don't blame Nick Wayne, Mother Wayne, and Kip Sabian for turning on you. I literally told you what was going to happen. Pull your cranium out of your ass. And then he said, the reason why I came out there was FTR. And he tells the story of, 5 years ago when I got medically cleared, clearly referencing the Royal Rumble. He called FTR and knew that he would whip him into shape. And then, all this talk about, their run and what led to this point. And, he was mad that he took 4 months out of his career when when he's kind of wrestling on borrowed time. And, so he came back. He said he is coming back to end FTR. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes, because clearly at some point they're going to set up for Christian's return to save Adam Copeland from FTR, which will set up the tag match inevitably. I think it'll happen at All Out in Canada, in Toronto, which is where FTR's done some of their best work. If you guys remember those tags from NXT. So that'll be very interesting. Stokely Hathaway gets out there. Fans are chanting, "Shut the fuck up." Stokely basically says it sounds like a Hathaway family reunion. I love Stoke. I just don't think he really fits with FTR. But he basically said Tony Khan and Warner Media basically got a bunch of emails about Copeland's behavior, and he said if Copeland interfered in FTR's matches or attacked them, he would be fired. So Cope called him an Oompa Loompa. The fans chanted Oompa Loompa. It would have been funnier if the fans would have sang the Oompa Loompa song. So AEW crowds are an interesting little bunch. And then Adam Copeland, takes out the security guards after, because he basically said, yeah, you mentioned that I can't touch FTR, but you didn't say anything about you. He attacks the security guards. Stokely turns around to see the other security guards run away, and Cope hits a spear. That's the end of the segment. I'm curious to see where this is go. This was really the first substantive thing, stemming on the Young Bucks thing is just going to be a running thing, but this is to start the build to something down the road, like a clear end point with this Christian and Cope reunion against FTR. So I like this a lot. Adam Copeland is as good of a storyteller and as good of a promo in the business, so I don't have any doubts that they'll do great stuff there. Mark Briscoe cuts a promo. He talks about MJF, MJF and some of the stuff that happened, and him invoking the name of his brother. He said MJF will pay for his sins. Then we get the four-way for $100,000. And also, I got to say this, Tony Khan must really hate his women's, because didn't we have a four-way in Mexico for like $250,000? Or it was like 4 million pesos, right? It was something like that. And I think that equates to like about $200,000 American. Tony, do you fucking hate your women that much? Why do they get 100,000 and the men get 200,000? I mean, I'm kind of spitballing here and just being kind of a jackass here, if you guys will indulge me here. So yeah, this match was, typical, like, just a four-way match. A lot of women get their big spots in. I love Aminata. I think Aminata is a lot better than people realize. She's very entertaining. A lot of people give her a hard time for the spot where she, like, drags another woman's with using her legs into her butt, which is basically another variation of the devil's kiss. So believe me, that could get over a lot more if they, treated it like, not a trend, if they actually made it feel like a much bigger deal. But yeah, really what happened was, Statlander goes for it's Willow who hits the doctor bomb and gets a near fall, and then Statlander pulls out the referee. Her and Willow brawl up to the stage. Aminata's going for the win, and Julia Hart. Sky Blue shows up. Julia Hart comes up from behind with the referee distracted, blasts the mist in the eyes of Aminata. Tekla hits a stop and wins the match. So Tekla wins $100,000. What my question is, are they just going to share it? Like, what is it? 33 grand a piece, I guess, is what they're going to do. 33 and a half grand, 33 and a third. You guys could do the Steiner math, I guess, with this. So I don't know what the fuck they're going to do there. But I guess Tekla, the creepy sisters or whatever they are, Tekla, Julia, and Sky Blue are a thing. So then we get Toni Storm promo. This was by the way, this was great production by AEW, using the venue to their advantage. Toni Storm just comes out on the balcony. It's a great shot. So she delivers her, her classic promo where she just basically says a bunch of variations about how she's a whore, I guess. So Toni Storm is just, the character is just on a different level. It may be goofy for some of you, but it's entertaining as shit. And then Toni basically recalled saying to Mercedes, hey, one wrong move and then I'd eat you alive. She said, well, darling, you're delicious. And the buffet's still open. So that was great. So then she talked about Luther. Luther got a decent reaction. Because apparently Luther is injured. So Toni then says her tits were pointing into the future. And she said she had to be careful now because this was the big one out on the Titantron. Athena and Billy Starks, they cut a promo. Athena basically sort of hints that, hey, something's moving forward. And And they couldn't wait to announce that, Toni Storm and Billy Starks is going to be a match next week. This was comically bad. Like, it went from really good production at the start of the segment with the way they shot the whole, Toni Storm promo from the balcony to you couldn't even let it breathe before you announced, "Hey, oh man, we're getting Toni Storm versus for Billy Starks. Gee, I wonder who's going to win that match." Like, it's just, I feel almost kind of bad for Billy Starks. She's only like 19, 20 years old and she's getting thrown into this. So they did the same thing with her, to set up the Mercedes feud. So, listen, I'm surprised Toni won, but I'm good. I'm glad to see that they're doing something here with Athena. I'd love to see them do something with other women because you can't just go straight to Athena right away with the contract. You can't just go right away to it. You've got to make other women matter in this division. That's in the booking in this division is really just bizarre. So then we get a promo from the former patriarchy, Sabian. Sabian basically said it's his purpose to defend his brother under the matriarch. So Mother Wayne said Nick and Sabian are her boys. Nick is her son of the prodigy. Nick said Christian became a liability. He said he realized it when Christian didn't stick to their plan when he attempted to become the AEW World Champion. Nick recalled Christian asking him how many world championships he's won. Nick said he's 20 years old. The question is, how many world championships will he win? Nick said Christian created this monster, and now he has to live with it, becoming the face of AEW and TNT now and forever. This was good promo from Nick. I love that they called back to, what they had been building off of. And I give Christian credit, even though it would have been the easy thing to kind of just, build to this Christian and Copeland thing right away. Christian wanted to finish this off the right way. They had the turn happen on a big show, and they're going to build to something here. So clear. Look, they're investing in, like, you gotta put some stock into Nick Wayne at least and make him not a geek anymore. Make him stand out on his own. I know obviously he's a smaller guy, but he's only 20 and he's got a Ring of Honor championship. So listen, let's see what they do with this. But I did like what they did there. I don't know if it's going to mean that the patriarchy is going to be involved with FTR and we're going to do a big schmoz there, but we'll see. Okada then comes out with a new entrance theme. Listen, I didn't hate the new entrance theme. A lot of people said it was that Okada got Death Rebelled. I don't necessarily believe that. But I wouldn't have changed his iconic entrance theme. That's his iconic entrance theme. That's the one thing that we associate with Kazuchika Okada. So then Okada beats this guy Quintero. He beats him in 60 seconds. Hit a drop kick. Hit the Rainmaker. There was no point of this. Basically, Okada calls out Swerve saying he screwed over my friends. He called Swerve a bitch. Then Swerve comes out there. He basically says, "Yeah, I did do that. What are you going to do about it, bitch?" So, and that, hey, I'm all for building to a new challenger for the Unified Championship. Swerve and Okada's fine with me. They only had one match like a year ago. I thought it was a waste of time. It didn't have a finish, but this is a good step. I like this. Even if the match didn't really mean anything. And then the main event, it's Hangman, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Mark Briscoe taking on Jon Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, and Claudio of the Death Riders. Why did this match happen? I don't get it. And it went on for 17 minutes. It went on for 15 minutes after the top of the hour. And Hangman just won with a jackknife pin. That's your world champion. First of all, he shouldn't have been wrestling, and he wins with a jackknife pin. Like, have him get a definitive, if you're going to have him wrestle, have him get a definitive win. That's your world champion, your babyface world champion. And that's what you did? Really? Like, that was odd. Like, this whole thing just didn't make any sense for me. After the match, the Death Riders attack, seemingly everybody's getting their shit in, and then Darby Allin spotlighted in the balcony area. It distracts Moxley. Moxley gets hit with a buckshot, music plays, and that's the end of the show. Listen, like I said, it wouldn't have been necessarily a terrible like I said, The reason why I say this in the video and at the start of the show, why this show was not great is because this was the follow up. This was the first 2 hours of television that you had coming off of one of your biggest shows, biggest gate, whatever, biggest show in North America, and yeah, it's just it didn't land for me. And I do agree. I think what should one is look. I think you could have started with Hangman, had him cut the promo, give him the rest of the night off. He's rested up, and then Moxley. We have like some sort of match. It doesn't even have to be Moxley in the match. Maybe you could have just had the Death Riders take on Shibata and Hobbs. That would have made some sense, and then had Moxley fucking hijack the thing. I'm not saying that you needed to main event with that, but that would have, like, on some level, you could have main evented with Hangman and his promo, but I understand why they went with it off the front of the show, because you want to start with your world champion. But given the fact that Darby was such a key figure at the end of this show, I do agree, Celeb Facts and Quotes, that Darby should have been a focal point of that end segment. So if you're gonna do a match, Death Riders have a tag match. Don't put Hangman in there. Don't put Moxley in there. And just have Moxley, hijack the segment at the end or something, or, just have a non-finish. Moxley cuts a promo basically, yelling and screaming about how he got screwed over and, just complaining. And then Darby comes out of the fucking ceiling or something like that, or jumps off the balcony, or does something crazy, or do something what you did. Instead, they did the laziest and the most simplest thing of all. You throw 6 people into a match. Moxley and Hangman shouldn't have even been anywhere near this thing, because those guys try to fucking kill each other for 35 minutes on Saturday. So there's no fucking selling whatsoever there anyway. It's just piss poor creative, man. It really is piss poor creative. If you guys have any questions here, like I said, super chats are open. That's the best way to support the show. Best way to support the channel. I appreciate all the love and support. Listen, from a financial perspective, AEW is better than TNA. I see that question in the chat. But in terms of booking, TNA, I think, is a bet. TNA books their product better. They get people over. They put people into matches in opportunities to be. And I think the WWE partnership has actually, helped. Ospreay, I think, is taking time off. Joe is doing Twisted Metal. That's why he's out of the picture. Listen, if you're going to treat this like your WrestleMania, it's one thing to like give your production team and give people time off. And I understand it's the summer and it's a little bit different than WrestleMania. But if you're going to treat this like your biggest show of the year, you've got to follow it up with something similar to the Raw after Mania. And this didn't feel like it. That was my problem. From jump, obviously, with the visual of the arena, that didn't set well with me. So it's just a lot of things could have been better on this show. And it didn't, and especially like just hearing from people who hadn't watched Dynamite in a while, and they were like, oh, all in Texas was great. I'm going to go see what's going on tonight. They go and tune in and they see this shit. You just lost a viewer. That's growth. That's my problem. And like I said, the sickos will probably eat this shit up because this is for them. But in terms of like, just objectively looking at this, the optics were not great. The booking was not strong here. They could have handled a lot of things better. And then, like I said, just doing a residency after you literally were in a stadium is just a horrible idea. It's not a good idea. It's not like, yes, it'll sound better on television. Like, hey, you're not going to have as many open air and as many empty seats, but it's optically, it's not a good look. So, but yeah, I'll stick around here for another couple minutes if you guys have any more questions or comments or concerns in here about what you saw tonight on Dynamite. Like I said, to me, like I said, the reason why I consider it kind of a bad show and an underwhelming show is because AEW did not really set forth to continue the momentum of what they had on Saturday. And that should have been their goal. I saw a bunch of people within the media saying, yeah, AEW's just got to go have a regular Dynamite. No, they don't. You've got to follow this up and continue the momentum because, like I said, I saw numerous accounts on Twitter, numerous people, even in the wrestling media and, just people alike who don't usually watch AEW, like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll go check this out to see what happened. They had a good show on Saturday. And they tune in, and this is what they get. You're not going to keep viewers. So, yeah, anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in here. I really appreciate all the love and support. We're getting up there close to 1,700 subscribers. You guys are fucking awesome. I really appreciate it. I honestly, like I said, I'm not one of these classic content creators. I'm not one of these guys who does this for a fucking living. I just, I watch wrestling and then I try to yap at you guys, and you guys seem to give me a lot of love and support. I really appreciate the response. So anyway, I'm going to sign off here. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon here off the Mic Sports Network. Go follow, go hit subscribe, go follow those Twitter handles up in the upper left-hand corner. But thanks so much.